The anomaly appeared first, a tiny ripple in the meticulously ordered structure of our joint finances. A charge for a boutique hotel stay in Portland, Oregon, on a weekend Clara had claimed was a high-pressure tech conference in Vancouver, Canada. My forensic accountant's brain, trained to spot discrepancies, flagged it automatically. It was small, easily dismissed as a mistake, a misplaced receipt, a detail Clara had simply gotten wrong in her busy executive life. But it lodged itself in my mind, a persistent, irritating grain of sand in the smooth machinery of my routine. My name is Eleanor Vance. I live in Seattle, Washington, a city of glass towers, evergreen trees, and relentless innovation. My profession is uncovering secrets hidden in numbers. I specialize in financial fraud, tracing illicit money flows, exposing the carefully constructed lies of white-collar criminals. It requires a particular kind of mind, analytical, patient, with an almost obsessive attention to detail. I thrive on the logic of data, the cold, hard facts that peel back layers of deception. My marriage to Clara was, I believed, built on a similar foundation of transparency and mutual respect. We had met at a tech industry networking event downtown, two driven professionals navigating the city's competitive landscape. She was charismatic, brilliant, a rising star in her field. I was drawn to her energy, her ambition, the way she seemed to command any room she entered. Our relationship had a certain polished efficiency, mirroring our lives. We discussed investments, career trajectories, shared goals. There wasn't much room for messy emotion, perhaps, but I thought that was our strength, a partnership based on intellect and shared values. Over the past year, however, the subtle shifts had begun. Clara was more guarded with her phone, taking calls in private, her screen angled away from me. Her girls' nights became more frequent, often stretching late into the evening. Our intimacy waned, replaced by a polite distance that felt colder than any argument. When I tried to talk about it, she'd brush it off, citing stress at work, my own overthinking, the natural ebb and flow of a long-term relationship. "You're being paranoid, Eleanor," she'd say with a dismissive wave, her eyes not quite meeting mine. The Portland hotel charge was the first tangible data point that didn't fit the narrative. It wasn't just an emotional distance anymore. It was a factual inconsistency. And in my world, factual inconsistencies were red flags. They were the threads you pulled on to unravel the whole tangled mess. My analytical mind, usually reserved for corporate audits, began to turn inward, focusing its considerable power on the structure of my own life. It felt clinical, almost detached, applying the same rigorous process I used to expose multi-million-dollar frauds to the woman who shared my home, my bed, my name. The thought was chilling, but the anomaly demanded investigation. Current part characters, 2763. Total characters, 2763. Applying forensic accounting techniques to my own marriage felt surreal, a dark parody of my professional life. I started small, looking at the digital footprint we shared. Our joint bank accounts, credit cards, shared cloud storage, tools designed for transparency in a partnership, now becoming potential sources of concealment. Clara was smart, careful, but even the most sophisticated criminals leave traces. It was about knowing where to look, understanding the patterns of behavior that deviated from the norm. I began by reviewing the metadata on shared photos, looking for location tags or timestamps that didn't align with her stated whereabouts. I checked our shared digital calendar for entries that might have been deleted or altered. I monitored login activity on shared streaming services or online retail accounts, cross-referencing IP addresses with known locations. It was tedious, painstaking work, requiring the same patience I applied when sifting through thousands of financial transactions. Initially, I found nothing conclusive. More small anomalies, yes, a login to a streaming service from a different state on a night she was supposedly home, a purchase history that included items I never saw and she never mentioned, a string of deleted messages from a contact simply labeled work meeting. Each piece was insignificant on its own, easily explained away with plausible deniability. But together, they formed a pattern, a mosaic of small deceptions that hinted at a larger, hidden picture. My professional intuition screamed that something was wrong. The same gut feeling that told me when a balance sheet was being manipulated, or when a series of transactions was designed to obscure a larger transfer, was now screaming about my personal life. Clara's dismissiveness, her guardedness, the emotional distance, they weren't just symptoms of stress, they were symptoms of concealment. I knew enough about digital security to know that anything truly incriminating wouldn't be on shared devices or accounts. It would be hidden, compartmentalized. My search needed to go deeper, into the private spaces she controlled. This felt like a violation, crossing a line I never imagined I would. But the alternative, living in this state of gnawing suspicion, being gaslighted with plausible lies, was slowly eroding my sanity. I needed facts. I needed the truth, no matter how painful. The next step required more direct access. I needed to examine her personal devices, her work phone, her laptop. This wasn't just checking shared accounts. This was forensic data extraction. It was the kind of work I did with court orders, with legal authorization. Doing it in my own home, on my wife's devices, felt like stepping into a moral grey area. But the stakes felt existential. My marriage, my peace of mind, my sense of reality felt on the line. One Tuesday night, after Clara had fallen asleep, exhausted from another late work event, I quietly went to her side of the bed. Her work phone was on the nightstand. My hands trembled slightly as I picked it up. I knew her passcode, a habit formed early in our relationship for convenience, now a key to Pandora's box. Taking a deep breath, I unlocked the phone. My investigation was about to enter a new, terrifying phase. The search for the hidden truth had begun in earnest, and I had a terrible feeling I was about to find it. Current part characters, 3107. Total characters, 15,870. Navigating Clara's work phone was like auditing a system designed for opacity. Corporate devices often have layers of security, but they also have vulnerabilities if you know where to look. My expertise wasn't just in finance, it was in the digital trails people left across various platforms and devices. I started with the obvious: messages, emails, call logs. As expected, anything sensitive seemed to have been deleted or was conducted through encrypted channels I couldn't immediately access. But I knew better than to focus only on the obvious. Deletion didn't mean erasure. Data lived in caches, backups, cloud syncs. I connected her phone to my laptop using software tools I typically deployed for data recovery in corporate investigations. I wasn't looking for specific keywords yet. I was looking for anomalies, apps she'd installed recently, particularly encrypted messaging services or apps disguised as something else, unusual data usage patterns, hidden files. That's when I found it. Not on the surface, but buried deep within the file system, linked to a generic-sounding productivity app she'd downloaded months ago. It was a secure messaging application, separate from her main work and personal accounts. My blood ran cold. This was it. This was the compartmentalization I had anticipated. Accessing the app required another layer of bypass, but my skills were up to the task. What I found inside was a gut punch that stole the air from my lungs. Messages, photos, videos, a sickeningly detailed chronicle of a long-term affair. It wasn't a brief lapse in judgment, it was a sustained, calculated betrayal that had been ongoing for well over a year, potentially even before our first anniversary. The messages were intimate, affectionate, filled with shared jokes and plans for future clandestine meetings. They painted a picture of a relationship far deeper and more involved than a casual fling. I felt a wave of nausea, followed by a cold, hard rage that settled deep in my bones. My hands, which had been trembling with apprehension, were now steady with a chilling resolve. I didn't stop to process the emotional devastation. My training kicked in. This wasn't just a personal crisis anymore. It was a case, and I needed to build an airtight case. Every message, every photo, every video, I extracted it, time-stamped it, categorized it. I took screenshots, created backups, mirrored the entire dataset. I noted locations mentioned, dates, times. It was a mountain of digital evidence, undeniable and damning. The sheer volume was overwhelming, a testament to the depth of the deceit. It took hours, working silently in the pre-dawn light filtering through our Seattle apartment windows, the city waking up outside while my own world lay in ruins. As I worked, piecing together the timeline from their sickeningly sweet exchanges, a name started appearing frequently. Daniel. Can't wait to see you, Daniel. Meeting Daniel at the Nest tonight. Just left Daniel's place. My analytical mind, even in the face of this devastation, immediately cross-referenced the name. Daniel Sterling. A prominent figure in a related tech sector, someone Clara had mentioned professionally. He was also, I knew, a critical client for my firm, a major account I had personally worked on audits for in the past. The anomaly had just become a catastrophe. The betrayal wasn't confined to my personal life. It was a direct threat to my professional world, the very foundation of my identity and livelihood. Current part characters, 3,168. Total characters, 9,038. The realization that Daniel Sterling, the man my wife was betraying me with, was a key client of my firm hit me with the force of a physical blow. It wasn't just a personal betrayal. It was a professional conflict of interest of the highest order. Exposing the affair could jeopardize not only my marriage, but my career, my reputation, potentially even my firm's relationship with a significant client. This wasn't just about divorce anymore. It was about navigating a minefield that could explode my entire life. My forensic brain, however, immediately shifted gears. The evidence I had gathered was powerful, but its usability was now complicated. I had to be absolutely certain that none of the information I used in the divorce proceedings could be traced back to privileged client data or obtained in a way that violated professional ethics. The evidence from the hidden phone was personal, obtained from a device in my home, used by my spouse. That was clean. But any overlap, any hint that I had leveraged professional access to uncover personal secrets could be catastrophic. I spent the next day in a blur, functioning on autopilot. I went to work, sat through meetings, reviewed reports, my mind a million miles away, replaying snippets of messages, analyzing the professional implications of Daniel Sterling's name. The pristine digital evidence I had compiled felt both like my shield and a potential weapon pointed back at me. My first priority, even before confronting Clara, was legal counsel. I needed a lawyer who understood complex assets, digital evidence, and potentially delicate professional situations. I spent my lunch break researching, finding a firm downtown known for handling high-net-worth divorces and intricate financial matters. I made an appointment for the following morning. That evening, I returned to our apartment, the space feeling alien and suffocating. Clara was home, acting as if nothing was amiss, offering a strained smile. I couldn't look at her, couldn't speak to her beyond monosyllables. The mountain of evidence sat dormant on my laptop, a silent witness to her lies. I retreated to my home office, the same room where I meticulously built cases against financial criminals and refined the presentation of my own case. I organized the evidence chronologically, categorized the types of communication, highlighted key dates and locations. I was building a case against my wife as if she were a corporate embezzler, applying the same cold logic to the dismantling of my marriage. Sleep was impossible. The images from the phone, the sickeningly affectionate messages, the knowledge of Daniel Sterling's identity, the professional risk, it all swirled in my head. I knew the confrontation was imminent, but I needed the legal strategy locked down first. I needed to know my rights, understand the implications of the evidence in Washington's no-fault divorce system, and, most importantly, get expert advice on navigating the professional conflict. My meticulousness wasn't just a trait. It was my lifeline, my way of imposing order on the chaos that had erupted in my life. The lawyer's office was in a sleek skyscraper overlooking Elliott Bay, the kind of place where fortunes were both made and unraveled. My attorney, Miss Nuff, Evelyn Reed, was sharp, with an air of calm competence that immediately put me at ease. I had sent her a preliminary email outlining the situation and the nature of the evidence, but seeing the physical binder and the organized digital files seemed to impress her. "Miss Vance," she said, closing the binder after reviewing a sample of the printouts. "This is exceptionally thorough. Most clients come to me with suspicions and fragments. You've built a compelling case." I explained my profession, and the meticulousness clicked into place for her. Then I laid out the complication, Daniel Sterling's connection to my firm. I explained the potential conflict of interest and my concern about how the evidence could be perceived or used against me professionally. Miss Reed listened intently, her expression unreadable. "Washington is a no-fault state, Eleanor," she explained. "The affair itself doesn't typically impact asset division unless marital funds were used to support the affair, which your evidence seems to indicate. However, the behaviour surrounding the divorce, attempts to hide assets, dishonesty, false accusations, can absolutely influence the court's decisions, particularly regarding things like spousal support or the division of complex assets. Your evidence not only proves the affair, but also establishes a pattern of deceit on Clara's part, which is incredibly valuable. Regarding Daniel Sterling, she advised caution. We need to be very careful how this is handled professionally. The divorce proceedings are separate from your work. We use the evidence to establish the facts of the marriage's breakdown and Clara's conduct, not to initiate action against Mr. Sterling or his company through the divorce court. Any professional repercussions for him or for your firm would likely happen outside of the divorce case itself, based on your firm's policies or his company's response if the information becomes public. But your meticulous documentation protects you. It shows you acted based on personal discovery, not professional access. She outlined the steps: filing the petition, formal discovery, where her lawyer would request information from me and we would request it from her. My evidence would preempt many of their demands, potential mediation, and finally, court if necessary. She emphasized that with this volume of evidence, a favorable settlement was highly probable, as Clara would have little leverage. Leaving Ms. Reed's office, I felt a sense of grim determination. The path forward was clear, albeit daunting. I had the facts, I had a strategy, and I had legal expertise on my side. The emotional weight was still crushing, but the practical steps provided a framework, a way to channel the pain into action. The next step was to bring my trusted colleague, Ben Carter, into the loop. I needed to navigate the professional fallout as carefully as the personal one. Ben Carter was more than just a colleague. He was a friend, someone I trusted implicitly in the cutthroat world of forensic accounting. We'd worked on countless complex cases together, late nights fueled by bad coffee and shared determination to uncover the truth. I asked him to meet me for coffee at a quiet spot near the office, away from prying eyes. Sitting across from him, the usual easy banter felt impossible. I laid it all out: the suspicion, the investigation, the discovery of the affair, the mountain of evidence, and the devastating revelation that the man involved was Daniel Sterling, a key client. Ben listened, his initial expression of concern deepening into shock as I spoke. He ran a hand through his hair, looking genuinely distressed. "Eleanor, I'm so damn sorry. That's a nightmare. Clara and Daniel. I mean, I knew they interacted professionally, but..." He trailed off, shaking his head. "The problem isn't just the personal betrayal, Ben," I said, my voice low. "It's the professional fallout. Daniel is a major account. If this blows up, if Clara tries to leverage it, or if his company finds out under messy circumstances..." Ben nodded, his analytical mind kicking in, mirroring my own. "Right? We need to protect you, protect the firm. How did you get the evidence? Was any of it?" "No," I cut in firmly. "Strictly personal devices, personal accounts. Nothing from client files, nothing from firm resources. My lawyer, Evelyn Reed, is clear on that. It's all clean, legally obtained evidence of her conduct." "Okay, that's crucial," Ben said, visibly relieved. "That's absolutely crucial. So what's the plan? You're divorcing her, obviously." "Yes. Filed the petition this morning. Evelyn is handling it. With the evidence, the legal side should be straightforward in terms of outcome. Clara has no leverage. The challenge is managing the narrative, especially if Daniel's name comes into play publicly. We need to ensure this doesn't look like a professional issue stemming from the firm or that I misused information. It's a private matter that happens to involve a client." Ben leaned forward. "All right. Consider me your professional shield. If any whispers start, if anyone asks questions, I'll run interference. We frame it as a personal matter, completely unrelated to your work here. Your reputation is solid, Eleanor. Everyone knows you're by the book. We lean on that." His support felt like a lifeline. In a situation where my personal and professional worlds were colliding in the worst possible way, knowing I had an ally who understood both was invaluable. "Thank you, Ben. That means a lot." "Hey, that's what friends are for," he said, offering a small, genuine smile. "Now, what about Daniel's wife? Does she know?" I took a deep breath. That was the next, equally difficult step. Contacting Sarah Jenkins felt like stepping onto even thinner ice. She was another victim in this tangled mess, blindsided by her husband's deceit, just as I had been by my wife's. But reaching out felt like inflicting pain, like dropping a bomb into her life. Yet I felt she deserved to know the truth, deserved the chance to make her own decisions based on facts, not lies. I found her contact information through the evidence I'd gathered, a number Daniel had called frequently, cross-referenced with publicly available professional profiles. I sent a simple, carefully worded email introducing myself and requesting a brief, confidential meeting regarding a sensitive matter involving her husband. I didn't mention Clara or the affair directly, wanting to deliver the news in person. She agreed, cautiously, suggesting a coffee shop I knew, ironically one not far from Daniel's office. Meeting her, I saw a woman who looked outwardly composed, perhaps a little tired around the eyes, but nothing to suggest her life was about to be shattered. We sat down, the air thick with unspoken questions from her side. I didn't waste time with small talk. "Miss Jenkins," I started, my voice gentle but firm. "My name is Eleanor Vance. I'm Daniel's wife's wife." The phrasing felt awkward, clinical, but it was the truth. "I recently discovered that my wife, Clara, has been having a long-term affair with your husband, Daniel." Her eyes widened, her composure cracking instantly. "What? No. That's not possible. Daniel wouldn't." "I understand this is shocking," I continued, pushing the binder across the table. It contained copies of the most damning evidence, messages, photos, timestamps. "I have compiled evidence, undeniable evidence. It's been going on for over a year." She stared at the binder, her hands trembling as she opened it. As she flipped through the pages, her face crumpled. Tears welled in her eyes, silent and devastating. She saw the intimate messages, the photos of her husband with my wife, the dates and times that corresponded with his supposed late nights at the office or business trips. I don't understand," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Why? How? How?" I explained briefly how I discovered it, focusing on the methodical process, not the emotional turmoil. "I know this is incredibly painful. I've been where you are, just days ago. I felt you had a right to know." She closed the binder, hugging it to her chest, sobbing quietly. I offered her a tissue, sitting in silence, giving her space to process the earth-shattering news. After a while, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, a message from Daniel asking if she was okay, if she was meeting a friend. She looked at the message, then back at me, a flicker of cold realization replacing the pure shock. The gaslighting had already begun. He's asking if I'm okay," she choked out, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. "He's lying to my face right now." I nodded. "He is. Clara is doing the same. They're good at it." I told her I was divorcing Clara and that I had legal counsel. I offered her the binder, telling her she could keep it, copy it, use it however she saw fit. "This is your information now, too. You deserve to have the truth." I gave her my lawyer's contact information, suggesting she speak to someone about her own situation. "You don't have to decide anything now. Just know that you're not alone in this, and you have options." She thanked me, her voice thick with emotion. She stood up, clutching the binder, looking utterly devastated, but also perhaps a tiny bit stronger for having the truth. She said she needed to go, needed to think. I watched her leave, a fellow traveller on this terrible, unexpected journey. Later that day, I received a frantic call from a man who introduced himself as Mark, Sarah's brother. He was furious, demanding to know who I was and why I had upset his sister. I calmly explained the situation, the evidence, and my reasons for contacting her. He was initially skeptical, then enraged at Daniel. He sounded like he wanted to physically confront Daniel, and I found myself, the forensic accountant, advising him on the legal ramifications of assault and the strategic advantage of using evidence instead of violence. He was protective of Sarah, and while his anger was raw and undirected, his loyalty to his sister was clear. It was another ripple effect of the affair, another life thrown into turmoil. With the evidence compiled, legal counsel engaged, and key individuals informed, the next phase was preparing for Clara's reaction and the formal legal battle. Miss Reed anticipated Clara's likely moves: initial denial, followed by attempts to discredit the evidence, portray herself as the victim, or potentially hide assets. My meticulous documentation was the perfect counter to all of this. We prepared affidavits detailing the discovery of the evidence and the timeline of the affair as revealed by the communications. We secured our joint financial accounts, ensuring no assets could be moved or hidden without immediate detection. We discussed the potential for Clara to make false accusations, a common tactic in contentious divorces, and planned how to refute them with objective facts and, if necessary, surveillance, though my existing evidence was so strong it was unlikely to be needed. Serving Clara with the divorce papers was a formality, handled by a process server at her office to ensure it was done professionally and without incident. I wasn't there, but I imagined the moment her carefully constructed world began to crumble. The response from Clara's lawyer was swift and aggressive. They immediately contested the validity of the evidence, claiming it was illegally obtained and fabricated. This was exactly what Miss Reed had predicted. We calmly responded by providing copies of the evidence, along with sworn statements detailing how it was discovered on devices within our shared home, refuting any claims of illegal access or fabrication. The sheer volume and consistency of the data made their claims ring hollow. Clara's lawyer quickly realized they were dealing with a different kind of opponent, one who had already done their homework and had the receipts, both literally and figuratively. Clara herself tried to contact me directly in the following days. Frantic texts, voicemails ranging from tearful apologies to angry accusations. I ignored them all, forwarding everything to Ms. Reed. My lawyer advised against any direct communication, as anything I said could potentially be twisted or used against me. It was difficult, listening to the voicemails before forwarding them, hearing the desperation and the continued attempts at manipulation. But I held firm. My focus was on the strategy, on navigating the legal process cleanly and efficiently. Meanwhile, Sarah Jenkins was starting to take action. She called me a few times, asking for advice, sharing her own painful conversations with Daniel and the pressure from her family, though Mark remained fiercely supportive of her decision to leave him. I listened, offered support, and reiterated Miss Reed's advice to her. Get your own lawyer, focus on protecting yourself, and trust your gut. It was clear she was struggling, but she was also finding strength in the truth and in knowing she wasn't alone. She had given the evidence binder back to me, saying she had copied what she needed and didn't want the physical reminder, but she thanked me profusely for providing her with the clarity she needed to leave Daniel. As the legal process moved towards potential mediation, the tension mounted. Clara's lawyer continued to probe, looking for any weakness in my case, any angle to gain leverage. But the evidence was an impenetrable wall. Every claim they made, every piece of information they requested, was met with a corresponding piece of documentation that contradicted Clara's position and reinforced mine. My meticulousness was paying off, turning what could have been a messy, drawn-out battle into a clear-cut case of undeniable fact. The settlement meeting was held in a neutral lawyer's office, a sterile room designed for difficult conversations. Clara was there with her lawyer, looking pale and drawn, a stark contrast to the polished executive I knew. I sat beside Miss Reed, feeling a strange mix of apprehension and cold resolve. Miss Reed began by stating our position, calmly and factually. Given the extensive evidence of Miss Vance's long-term affair, which began prior to the irretrievable breakdown of the marriage, and the documented pattern of deceit, our offer is straightforward. We propose a fair division of marital assets, based on the financial records we have compiled, including half the value of the marital apartment and half of the joint savings. This is more than a court might award, considering the circumstances, but Eleanor is seeking a swift and clean resolution. Clara's lawyer countered, attempting to argue for a larger share, citing various reasons that sounded hollow in the face of the evidence. They tried to downplay the affair, call it a mutual drifting apart, suggest the evidence was inconclusive. Then Miss Reed delivered the decisive blow. She didn't raise her voice. Her tone remained professional, but her words were sharp as surgical steel. We have a complete digital archive of the affair, counsel. Every message, every photo, every timestamp, every location. We have documented financial transactions corresponding to clandestine meetings. We have evidence of attempts to conceal assets. If this proceeds to court, we will present all of it. We will require Ms. Vance to testify under oath regarding the timeline and details of the affair. We will present the evidence to the court, piece by painful piece, and we will use it to establish a pattern of dishonesty that will significantly impact any judicial decision regarding asset division or spousal support. This offer is generous, designed to avoid that public and painful process. Your client has no leverage here. Clara, who had been sitting silently, her eyes fixed on the table, visibly flinched. Her lawyer tried to confer with her quietly, but Clara shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. She looked at me, her expression a mixture of despair and accusation. I met her gaze, my face impassive. There was no anger left, just a vast, empty space where my love and trust for her used to be. "Eleanor," she whispered, her voice cracking. Can't we talk?" "Privately," Miss Reed intervened smoothly. "All communication regarding the settlement must go through counsel, Miss Vance. That is the process." Clara turned back to her lawyer, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. She understood. She was caught. The evidence had boxed her in completely. After a few more minutes of quiet, tearful conversation with her lawyer, she nodded. "She'll sign," her lawyer said, defeated. Watching Clara sign the divorce papers was surreal. It felt anticlimactic, just a few strokes of a pen finalizing the end of a life we had built together. She didn't look at me again as she left the room, her lawyer following close behind. The room was silent after they were gone, except for the rustle of paper as Miss Reed organized the signed documents. "Well," Miss Reed said, a small, satisfied smile on her face, "that's that. Your meticulousness saved you a considerable amount of grief, Eleanor, and likely money." I nodded, unable to speak, a strange numbness washing over me. It was over. The strategic battle was won. But the personal cost felt immense. The days following the settlement meeting were filled with the practicalities of dismantling a shared life. The apartment, once our home, now felt like a stage set being packed away. Clara's belongings needed to be sorted and removed. I approached this task with the same methodical detachment I applied to my work. I went through closets, drawers, and boxes, categorizing items like evidence: hers, mine, shared marital property. I arranged for a moving company to pack and transport Clara's things to a storage unit, meticulously photographing and cataloguing every box and piece of furniture as it left the apartment. My lawyer had advised this to prevent any later claims of damaged or missing items, another layer of protection built on documentation. Watching the movers carry away the physical remnants of our life together felt strangely liberating. The space began to feel lighter, emptier, ready to be reclaimed. The professional situation with Daniel Sterling remained delicate. The divorce settlement was confidential, but rumors had a way of circulating in the close-knit tech community. My firm was aware of the situation, thanks to my proactive disclosure to Ben and management. We had a plan in place to manage any potential fallout, emphasizing that this was a personal matter and that my professional conduct and access were beyond reproach, backed by my reputation and the documented evidence of how I discovered the affair. Fortunately, Daniel's company seemed more focused on containing the damage to their own reputation, and the issue didn't escalate into a direct professional conflict for me or the firm, a testament to careful handling and perhaps Daniel's own desire to avoid further exposure. Sarah Jenkins, meanwhile, was navigating her own path. She had separated from Daniel and was pursuing her own divorce. We spoke periodically, sharing updates and offering mutual support. She told me that having the undeniable evidence had been crucial, empowering her to stand firm against Daniel's attempts at reconciliation and pressure from some family members to forgive him. Her brother, Mark, remained her rock, providing practical help and emotional support. It was heartening to see her finding her strength, rebuilding her life piece by piece, much like I was doing. I allowed myself a period for processing, a conscious decision to step back from the relentless strategic action. It wasn't a pity party in the traditional sense, but a planned retreat. I took a week off, not going far, just staying in a quiet rental cabin outside the city, surrounded by the stillness of the Pacific Northwest forest. I spent time hiking, reading, and simply being, allowing the suppressed emotions, the hurt, the anger, the sadness, to surface. It was painful, messy work, far less structured than auditing, but necessary. I journaled, not about facts and timelines, but about feelings and loss. Returning to Seattle, the apartment felt different. Empty, yes, but also full of potential. I started making it my own again, repainting, rearranging furniture, bringing in pieces that reflected my taste, not a compromise. I was rebuilding not just a space, but a sense of self that had been shaken to its core. My divorce was finalized. The legal battle was over, won decisively through strategy and evidence. The personal healing was ongoing, a slower, less linear process. But I had navigated the crisis, not by collapsing under the weight of betrayal, but by leveraging my skills, seeking support, and taking methodical, deliberate action. The anomaly had been found, the deception exposed, and the structure, though broken, was being rebuilt on a foundation of truth and resilience. I was Eleanor Vance, forensic accountant, survivor, and architect of my own recovery. Life after the divorce settlement settled into a new rhythm. The legal back and forth ceased, replaced by the quiet hum of rebuilding. The apartment was no longer a battleground, but a sanctuary. I invested in new furniture, choosing pieces that felt like me, not a compromise. The process of creating a space that was entirely mine was surprisingly therapeutic. The storage unit held the remnants of a past life, waiting to be fully processed or eventually discarded, a physical representation of the separation. My professional life provided a welcome structure and a sense of purpose.